who are in power there who did not even want to cooperate with the tribunal. And this went on for a very long time, up until 2001. And then there was a backlash in those communities which blamed the tribunal for not cooperating with their own communities because someone from the tribunal never actually came up and addressed them. And this is a classic system of manipulation that we have. We have a situation which we have to change. The perception of the tribunal is important, but for me right now, it is far more important what the perception will be of my court, my local court in Bosnia. So what I want to know, what's going to happen in the next couple of years, is what is going to happen with that court, because once the tribunal closes, the prosecution of war crimes will not end. There are hundreds of thousands of them who still have to be prosecuted. So who is going to handle that? That is the whole point. So there was a completely false, unrealistic expectation that was actually placed out there about the tribunal's work. Let's be objective. Let's see who it was who cooperated in 1994, 1995, up until 2000 with the tribunal. There were various circles who would actually not disclose materials. They would hide, conceal documents. There were documents that had to be seized by force. I4 had, for instance, to seize documents, to raid certain areas, search premises, and seize documents. So the perception has to be very realistic, and it has to be based on facts, on the understanding that there are all kinds of different forces that will be obstructive and obstructionist, who will conceal documents and evidence and undermine the work of the tribunal. So in that whole context, we have to be just, and we have to be very careful when we assess the success or lack thereof of the tribunal. For me, the tribunal was very successful because had it not been established, we would not have the situation which we have today, that we actually have such courts in the region, and we would not have the courts that are in place now to try these cases in the region.
Program. Do you want to add anything, Rafik, and then Natasha?
Well, I would like just to say a few words about the outreach program, but also about the problems that are clearly in evidence when we try to understand what it is that the outreach program is within the tribunal and what the expectations of that program are outside of it. It seems to me from the very start of this conference that we are actually having this debate in a sort of vacuum, and only at this panel discussion have we actually approached that core issue, which is the context in which the tribunal is actually functioning and the context in which the tribunal should contribute to reconciliation and have a transformative impact on the relations between people on the ground there. First of all, you were the one who established the outreach program, and now I would like to use the next 30 seconds to say something that illustrates very well how the outreach program, once it was accepted and understood, not only by the tribunal, to be clear, to begin with, which then understood that public relations is a way that the public outreach program should be a PR program, an attempt to actually establish contacts and to convey information. Well, my next point is the following. You established the outreach program as a reaction to what you had heard about a number of people from the Prijedor municipality who refused to accept the sentence in the Tadic case. This was as early as 1997. This village is called Omarska, and the people there simply refused to admit that there was any camp in Omarska, in spite of all the facts that were established in that trial. About a year and a half ago, a good friend of mine, whom you probably know, although it doesn't matter who he is, traveled to Omarska in order to show a friend of his, a colleague of his, where Omarska camp was. And since he lost his way, he asked the local people to tell him if they knew where the camp was. And in 2008, in other words, 11 years later, after several programs that the outreach program organized and several events that it organized in Omarska itself, and these people who must have been aware of the facts, yet when my friend asked them where the camp was, the local people answered, no, there never was a camp here. This was all just something that the Muslims made up. In spite of the fact that the former camp inmates visit that site and go through the site and want to see and be there. What I'm trying to say is that any kind of PR exercise, any kind of information transfer, we have Mr. Klarin here, and you can actually watch on the Bosnian television, including the TV in Republika Srpska, you can watch his program about the details as to the proceedings before the tribunal. So that is not the problem, the information itself. The problem is that in the former Yugoslavia, the discussion about the tribunal is actually something that is led by elites or circles who see in the tribunal a sort of threat to their own agendas. And they try to minimize whatever is positive about the ICTY and augment and exaggerate to a great extent to whatever are its weaknesses. You asked me a few moments ago to tell you a few words about what the impact of the tribunal and the tribunal's legacies on reconciliation in the former Yugoslavia. There is no reconciliation in the former Yugoslavia. What my colleague earlier said, I don't agree with him. There is no reconciliation there, and if there is any, it is in spite of everything that is going on. So the tribunal was unable to contribute to this, and that is why the expectations, the huge expectations that the tribunal could be the one to transform the reality there is unrealistic. But as a tribunal advocate now, I have to say that the tribunal is to blame a bit itself because it did not manage to actually develop this sense that the tribunal is actually working in favor of these people, and it has more or less confined its work on unrealistic expectations, as we like to say at the tribunal. So the expectations, whatever they are, come down to this. The victims will never be completely satisfied with what we can offer. So what I'm trying to say is there are no prime ministers or presidents of states. I'm saying what I mean by that is people who are actually policymakers. You need some sort of clean criminal record in the region if you want to be on any kind of function there. So if you were to appoint it to one of the highest posts in public administration, there would be no problem and about that at all if you had some kind of criminal record or even if you were indicted as a war criminal by the ICTY. So that is the major obstacle to the outcome of the tribunal's work there.
Natasha had her hand up first, and then I'll go to you, Mr. Savage. Let's go back to, if we can, a little bit to direct topics we're asked to consider. And so my question is, can the records of the ICTY be used for historical purposes and peace building? Natasha?
Upravo sam to htela da...
That was what I was about to say. The Hague Tribunal and its legacy is something that definitely will become a part of the historical record concerning our past. I do not agree with Refik in his views, especially when he's saying that there is no reconciliation process. Maybe it is unrealistic, and maybe we are wrong in expecting to have the tribunal do that. That's not the purpose of the tribunal, to bring reconciliation. The task of the tribunal, as of any other tribunal, is to try the accused, bring fair sentences, and to hope that will bring some influence on social and other processes in one state or several states. What is very important here is that the legacy of the tribunal has given us factual conclusions concerning the war crimes. I have not seen any instance of that fact being challenged, no matter from which of the countries we are talking about, from former Yugoslavia. There are challenges to the fact that tribunal may have been a political institution and so on, and that's something that will be going on, but I will not find a single instance where somebody is challenging the factual findings of the tribunal, and that's very important. This tribunal has a regional element importance. This is the only institution that, in a way, links up all of us who were part of this armed conflict, but it is not enough. We cannot build historic record of our past only and exclusively on the legacy of the tribunal. This is an institution that's focused on perpetrators. We need something, a regional body, that would be focused on victims. There are thousands and thousands undocumented cases of horrendous murders that will never come before the courts because courts have limited resources. By 2025, if we look at what the Hague Tribunal could have achieved and what the national courts could have achieved, we will have maybe 800 or up to 1,000 people who will have been sentenced for the most serious crimes. We need an additional body, and that's why there is this original initiative that was nicely discussed today by Pierre Mireille. And why is it important? Because that's something that comes from the grassroots, something that wasn't imposed. Now, we are not talking about the regional commission. Everyone will gladly support it. We can't expect that. There will be people who are saying, no, this is going to be a commission that's against those victims or against other group. But our joint interest is to have one historical record of the past. The trials will not achieve it. Hiding of documents will not achieve it either. Some of it can be done through the legacy of the tribunal, but additionally we need another institution that will have a regional character. That is the only instrument that will guarantee, to a degree at least, that we will not again take up arms and start fighting each other. This is the only instrument that can reduce the tensions, the only instrument that can bring people together, that can influence us to remove or change slowly the negative tone